The weekend. In fact, since last Friday is the 5th ANC National Policy Conference, and one person who's been there covering it day by day is Aldrin Sampear. Let's cross to him now and catch up with what's been happening. Aldrin?
Yes, good evening, Peter. Today's day 4 has come to a conclusion. The sectoral commissions were sitting discussing various issues, including economic transformation, health and education, the legislature and governance subcommittees, as well as the Committee on International Affairs. So various subcommittees that sit down now. Right now, let me introduce Dr. Mcebisi Ndletyana, who is joining us now to speak more on some of the outcomes. And I just quickly want to get your sense. I was speaking to someone earlier on about the conference, and I was saying that it's almost so dry. It's dry. Like you compare it to the NGC, for instance, and the NGC felt more robust. You had issues that came out around how do you bolster the Integrity Commission. You had the ICC decision that came out of the NGC, and somehow this seems to be watered down. I don't know if it is because of the 2 press briefings that have been taking place over the past 2 days, the organizational renewal as well as the strategy and tactics document.
I think you will get more excitement generated tomorrow when we get briefings from the commissions. So far, I mean, as you say, you've only had 1 or 2 briefings, and so information has been controlled. But from tomorrow, there will be more excitement because what you will get will be indications of where the ANC is going, not only on leadership but also on economic transformation.
One of the issues that came out today during the press briefing with Natim Teto on the strategy and tactics document or subcommittee was the issue around white monopoly capital or monopoly capital, and it seems though that they're not really consensus, but that they'll be going forward with monopoly capital, which has always been in the ANC's documents. But one question that I did ask Natim Teto, though, is the question around the role of the PIC. The millions of rands that the PIC invest in companies which are mostly white-owned. You have Group 5, you have ShopRite, for instance, where the PIC is a shareholder in ShopRite, and I was saying you have Whitey Basson, who got 50 million rand, and the PIC's hands seem to have been tight on that one.
You see, that's the insincerity of this radical talk, is that the very individuals who are pushing this radical talk are themselves in charge of institutions that can help radicalize the economy. It's okay to help black folk buy into white established companies. But I think we need to rethink this and have black people invest in new productive assets. I think for a nationalist movement especially, you would want to leave a legacy where you can point at specific black business people that were created by the post-apartheid government. That's where we need to focus more on this black industrialization program. To not only to eliminate prejudices that black people can do business, but also you'll be creating employment. New industries will emerge. It's well and good. Yes, I don't poo-poo buying into existing companies necessarily, but you need to pay equal emphasis on starting new companies.
If anything, if you look at the taxi industry, it shows us that black people can run a billion-rand industry and quite successful at that.
You have companies. I mean, you have a history of successful black business people. Maponya and Joburg. Yeah. You have that all over the country, right? People who've started businesses, and so far we haven't harnessed and encouraged entrepreneurship in the black community by making money available. The other day, SABC had a show showing a company somewhere in the Eastern Cape, young people who were making toilet papers, for instance. They started small, but the company is big. The whole idea, for instance, here in Gauteng about township economy is to encourage people to open up their own companies. On what they need is a market. If government says we'll procure, if you make furniture, if you fix cars, if it's about, because you do have people who are keen, who have ideas, but all they need is capital and the market.
Yeah. A couple of months ago, actually, was speaking to the MMC for infrastructure in Ekurhuleni, and he raised the point that there was a point where there was a tender that was awarded to a certain company. However, though, they found out that SANRAL objected because SANRAL felt that the company doesn't meet their criteria of a certain level because the breach that was going to be built was going to go over the N3. And because of that, then that meant that the tender now had to go to a white-owned company, predominantly white-owned company. Are those some of the stumbling blocks that need to be looked at?
Well, I think we have to concede that there is lack of experience. That in the application, for instance, new business people, black business people might not get certain things right. So you need to have an infrastructure that ensures that you guide people through. There should be certainty, of course, in terms of expertise, know-how, that if they say they will build a bridge, they will build a bridge that will not collapse tomorrow. So when you talk black business, you don't compromise standards and excellence. But we have to admit that there is insufficient experience. So instead of punishing them, I don't know the specifics of your case, but instead of punishing them, help them along. Because if you overlook, you punish them for those small things, then you'll forever be giving business to white established companies. Then you are further promoting monopoly capital.
Quickly on the ANC's document as well, Natim Tetwa's briefing earlier on as well spoke about, the question was around coalition, and he says that there was no discussion on coalitions because he says it is a defeatist attitude. Do you think that the party is awake to what's currently happening?
Well, heading towards 2016 local government elections, the ANC was discussing coalitions in the background, even though they wouldn't say so publicly. They have lost 15% of their support in 8 years. They are now sitting at 54%. At this rate, everything that they are doing now, they'll be lucky not to hit 45 in 2019. So coalitions, everyone who's looking at this thing seriously, especially their strategists, are certainly looking at some possible partners, especially EFF and UDM, for instance. So they might not say it publicly, but behind the scenes, because, I mean, there's a small difference between 4 and 48. I mean, 54 and 48%. So quite likely there won't be a majority party.
It was actually quite weird hearing him say that, because at the launch of the discussion document, Sayanda Lolo did say that the party is actually sitting down to formalize a standardized approach on coalitions. Quick question on the Eastern Cape. The Eastern Cape is proposing that in terms of unity, to harness unity, their proposal is that all plus minus 1 million members of the ANC should vote for the leadership of the party instead of having branches decide on who should become the leader of the organization. Do you think that that's a good idea?
It's not
logistically, probably a lot of work will have to go into that?
Well, you would have it the same way you do by-election or election, local government election. It cuts through the intermediaries because now we have 2 delegates, for instance, going to a conference. And those delegates might belong to one faction of the branch or another. So if you have everyone, all the contending voices within the branch, voting, then it eliminates the possibility of 2 delegates being influenced. But at the same time, you'll have to make sure that there's no gatekeeping in that branch, because branches have a way of keeping out those who disagree with the dominant view. So you have to ensure that there's quality nomination processes in that branch, that everyone who's applied for membership in that branch is granted membership. Because for now, you can apply for a branch and not get a membership card for years.
Is the online system an answer to that, the online application system?
It is an answer to that, especially if it is central. You do that at your house. Today, you give your form to an REC member. It sits there in their car boots. You go for years without a card, so it ensures that there's uniformity, there's efficiency, there's no meddling. The system is watertight to some degree.
Dr. Mcebisi, thank you so much for your time. Well, we've come to the end of day 4 of the ANC's Policy Conference. Tomorrow, day 6, day 5 continues, and as we come to the end of the Policy Conference, President Jacob Zuma will be giving us the keynote address on the 6th day, that is on Wednesday. Tomorrow, all the sectoral commissions will continue their discussions and then head into plenary to consolidate all their views and all their proposals. And then, of course, President Jacob Zuma will give us an overview of what some of the decisions that the party has decided on. For now, it's back to you in studio.
Aldrin, thank you very much indeed. That's Aldrin Sampear, who's continuing to bring us great coverage from the ANC's 5th National Policy Conference taking place at Nasrec, south of Johannesburg.